The man who was supposed to save Iran just walked out the door. No announcement, no press conference, no formal statement to the world, just gone. And the moment he left, something shifted in Tehran that no analyst, no diplomat, no military strategist had predicted would happen this fast. The negotiating team that Iran spent months assembling, the last line of defense against total collapse, lost its head. And with it, possibly the last real chance Iran had to negotiate from anything resembling a position of strength. This is not a rumor. This is not speculation. This happened. And what it means for the next 72 hours could determine whether the Middle East finds peace or whether it finds something far, far worse. So let us go back. Let us go all the way back to the moment this domino started to fall. Because what is unfolding right now did not begin last week. It did not begin last month. It began the day America decided that this time there would be no deal unless Iran gave up everything. The sky over Tehran does not simply light up. It tears open. American B-2 bombers, flying in coordinated formations with Israeli jets, begin the most significant military operation against Iran in modern history. Nuclear sites buried deep underground, military command centers, IRGC headquarters. All of it hit with precision that takes years to develop and seconds to execute. But the strike that changes everything is not on a nuclear facility. It is on a single building in Tehran where Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran for over 3 decades, the man who called America the Great Satan, the man who outlasted 5 American presidents, draws his last breath. The Islamic Republic of Iran, the system that defined the entire Middle East since 1979, wakes up the next morning without its leader, and the world holds its breath. What happens next is where things take a very serious turn. Iran does not collapse. Not immediately. Not the way Washington had hoped. Within hours, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps activates contingency plans they have been rehearsing for years. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the fallen supreme leader, is elevated. The message from Tehran is clear. We are still here. We are not finished. And to prove it, Iran does the one thing that sends shockwaves from New York to Beijing. It closes the Strait of Hormuz. That single move, closing a narrow strip of water, barely 21 miles wide at its most constricted point, freezes global oil markets. Brent crude surges past $126 a barrel. Gas prices in America climb past $4.30. The global economy, already teetering, begins to feel the pressure of a conflict that was supposed to be over in days. It is not over, not even close. Trump goes on Truth Social. The language he uses is not diplomatic. He says Iran is choking like a stuffed pig. He says the naval blockade he has imposed on Iranian ports is more effective than the bombing. He says Iran will never, under any circumstances, be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. And then he says the words that will define this conflict for history, when the only acceptable outcome is unconditional surrender. But here is what most people do not realize. Behind the scenes, something quieter is happening. Oman is sending messages. Pakistan is flying diplomats. Qatar is on the phone. China is offering proposals. Russia is meeting with Iran's foreign minister in St. Petersburg. The world does not want this war. And even some inside Washington are beginning to whisper that the path Trump has chosen is narrower than it looks. There are 2 factions inside Iran now, and they are fighting each other almost as hard as they are fighting America. On one side, President Masoud Pezeshkian and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. These are pragmatists, men who look at the rubble of their country's military infrastructure, men who see the lines of Iranians in the streets after the ceasefire announcement, and they understand that survival requires compromise. They are willing to sit across a table from Americans and talk. They are willing to discuss the nuclear program. They know what the alternative looks like. On the other side, the hardliners embedded deep inside the IRGC and the new supreme leader's inner circle, men who believe that any concession is surrender, men who believe that Iran has not yet been defeated, because Iran cannot be defeated, because to admit defeat is to admit that everything they built since 1979 was a lie. These men would rather burn what remains of the country than hand it over intact to Washington. And it is this second group that just made a move that no one expected. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, the man chosen to lead Iran's negotiating team with the United States, the man whose job it was to find a way out of this war, receives a message. The message is not from the Americans. It is from Khamenei's inner circle. It tells him he went too far. It tells him that attempting to include the nuclear issue in the talks was a betrayal of the revolution. It tells him that the entire delegation to Pakistan was cancelled because of him. That the plane that was supposed to take the Iranian team to Islamabad for negotiations never took off, because the moment it was ready to leave, a single message from the Supreme Leader's office grounded it. And then comes the demand that stuns even seasoned Iranian political observers. Resign. Ghalibaf is forced out, removed, cast aside in the middle of a war, in the middle of negotiations, in the middle of a moment when Iran desperately needed someone at the table who could hold the two factions together. The man who was supposed to save Iran just walked out the door. Now ask yourself, who steps in? Who takes over? The name being floated is Saeed Jalili. And if you know anything about Iranian politics, that name should make your blood run cold. Jalili is not a negotiator. Jalili has never been a negotiator. He is the man who has spent his entire political career saying no. No to enrichment limits. No to international inspectors. No to America. No to Israel. No to compromise of any kind. He is the hardliner's hardliner. And now he may be the man sitting across from Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. This is where things take a turn that changes everything. Trump is watching. He knows about the internal collapse inside Iran. He has intelligence. He has sources. And he believes, genuinely believes, that Iran is on the verge of something he has been chasing since he first withdrew from the nuclear deal back in 2018. Total, complete, unconditional capitulation. He tells Axios that Iran's oil storage is getting close to exploding. He says their pipelines cannot handle what is building up because they cannot export anything through a blockade. He says Iran is in a state of collapse, and they want the strait opened because they are desperate. He says it is time for Iran to cry uncle. To say the two words no revolutionary government wants to say, we give up. And for a brief electric moment over one weekend in April, it seems like it might actually happen. Trump gets on the phone with reporters. Multiple reporters. He tells Bloomberg that Iran has agreed to an unlimited suspension of its nuclear program. He tells CBS that Tehran agreed to everything. He tells Axios there will be a meeting, probably this weekend, and that a deal could come in the next day or two. The world exhales. And then Iran's government reads what Trump said, and everything falls apart. Iranian officials publicly reject the claims. One by one, the concessions Trump described are denied. The ceasefire, fragile to begin with, begins showing cracks. A U.S.-guided missile destroyer seizes an Iranian cargo ship trying to break through the blockade. Tehran is furious. The hardliners inside Iran point to the episode as proof that American promises are worthless, that any deal will be used as a trap, that the only language America understands is resistance. Inside the White House, Trump's own advisors quietly acknowledge what has happened. The president, they tell CNN, has been detrimental to the talks. His habit of negotiating through social media, of making public claims before anything is signed, has given the hardliners in Tehran exactly the ammunition they needed. The Iranians, one official says, did not appreciate being made to look weak in front of their own people. But here's the deeper truth that neither side wants to say out loud. Both sides believe they have won. Trump believes the strikes, the blockade, the economic strangulation of Iran's oil sector, and the assassination of Khamenei have broken the regime beyond repair. He believes it is only a matter of time before Iran crawls to the table and accepts his terms. The IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard that has survived everything thrown at it, believes the opposite. They believe they have absorbed the worst America and Israel could deliver, and they are still standing. Their missiles are still buried underground. Their networks are still functioning. Their new supreme leader is still in place. They did not lose this war. They are still in it. And that is the most dangerous miscalculation possible. Because when two sides in a conflict both believe they have won, what comes next is never a peace deal. The ceasefire that began on April 8th has already been violated. Both sides have accused the other of breaking terms. Trump has extended the truce multiple times, setting deadline after deadline that comes and goes without resolution. April 7th, then April 23rd. Now Trump has given Iran 3 to 5 days to resolve its internal divisions and come to the table. The clock is ticking again. And here's the detail that makes this moment unlike anything we have seen. Iran does not have a unified government right now. The man who is leading negotiations is gone. His replacement is either a hardliner who will blow up the talks entirely, or the foreign minister who may not have the authority to make the concessions Washington demands. Khamenei's inner circle has made clear it will not accept discussing the nuclear program at all, but Trump has made equally clear he will not accept anything less than the complete dismantlement of that program. There is no middle ground visible from where either side is standing. And yet the stakes could not be higher. The Strait of Hormuz, which Iran still controls and still has the ability to close, carries roughly 1/5 of all the oil traded in the world. Every day that blockade continues, every day that global energy markets remain in crisis, the economic damage compounds. For America, for Europe, for Asia, for every nation that fills a gas tank or powers a factory with fuel that moves through that narrow strip of water. The world is watching what happens in the next 72 hours. And there is one more layer to this, one more dimension that changes the entire picture. Iran's people are watching too. The protests that erupted inside Iran after the ceasefire announcement, the Iranians who came into the streets not to protest America, not to burn flags, but to question their own government, those people did not disappear. The internal pressure inside Iran is not only coming from Washington, it is coming from below, from citizens who have spent 45 years under a system that promised them dignity and delivered them poverty, isolation, and now war. The new supreme leader has never been seen in public since taking power. The government that controls one of the most strategically located countries on earth cannot agree internally on whether to send a delegation to Pakistan. The man they trusted to negotiate just got fired for trying to negotiate, and Trump is watching all of it, posting, declaring, announcing victory that has not arrived and may not arrive on the terms he has described. The question is no longer whether Iran will break. The question is what happens when it does, or what happens if it does not. History does not move in straight lines. Empires that appear to be collapsing sometimes stabilize in the last moment. And powers that appear to be winning sometimes find that the moment of apparent triumph becomes the moment of their greatest overreach. What we are witnessing right now is one of those rare hinged moments in history. A moment where everything is still in motion, where the outcome is genuinely unknown, where the decisions made in the next few days, in back rooms in Oman and Pakistan and Washington and Tehran, will determine the shape of the Middle East for a generation. Ghalibaf is gone. The negotiating team is in shambles. The blockade is holding. The ceasefire is cracking. Trump is declaring victory. And Iran's new supreme leader, man no one outside Iran had heard of a year ago, is sitting in a bunker somewhere, making decisions that will affect hundreds of millions of people. The last leader in Tehran did not quietly resign from a comfortable position. He was pushed out by the same system that is now deciding whether to bend or to break. And what comes after that decision, what comes after this moment, is the story that the entire world is waiting to read. But whether it ends in a deal or in another wave of strikes, one thing is already clear. The Iran that existed before February 28th, 2026 is gone forever. The only question left is what takes its place. And that question does not have an answer yet.